Welcome to VideoMark. Welcome to the aftermath of Template Tuesday. It's the in-depth tutorial that I promised yesterday when I provided this free template. And why I'm doing this, again, I'm recreating paid popular After Effects templates to challenge myself, and hopefully you follow along and learn something along the way. And on top of that, you get to download what I just had created in that tutorial process, free template for you. How nice is that? So I found this template. You can see the original below my template here, and I tried to be as accurate as possible. And this template has sold over 1,000 times for $35. That's over $40,000, a lot of money. And I'm going to show you how I recreated this. I try to be as accurate as possible. And it's basically pretty simple. And if you want to download the template, again, head over to my website, unlock the download button, and it's yours. But if you want to learn how to do this, just keep watching. So let's get right into it. And let's start with the things that you can or should change when you download and use this template. Of course, you want to put in your own name, your own title, your own pictures. Again, little disclaimer, I created this from scratch by looking at the preview file. I didn't download anything. Funny thing, I got blocked from 2 Facebook groups because they thought I downloaded it from Video Hive and re-uploaded it. No, I created this from scratch, okay? And all the pictures are mine, all the examples, I left them in there, all the placeholder videos and all that stuff, because when I started learning this and I used templates, I hated it when it didn't look exactly like the preview file. So what you're downloading is exactly what you're seeing here, okay? And let's get right into it. So this is the title. Where can you change the title? It's right here where it says your name. And what did I do here? I actually keyframed this typewriter effect. Now, if you know After Effects, there's a pre-made effect called typewriter, but the thing is, it doesn't, for some reason, I didn't get it to center on the canvas when the letters are coming up. So what I did is I just went through and with every new hold keyframe, I put in a new letter. And that way it's animating in and still being centered. As you can see, it's exactly in the center of the canvas. So if you want to change that, your playhead should be sitting right on the keyframe. And let's say we want to add, I don't know, any letter here. And as you can see, it's recording that, and you have to be sitting on this keyframe. Otherwise, it will record new keyframes. So just make sure either by holding the Shift key and dragging the playhead, or the J and K keys to jump to the next or previous keyframe, okay? And that way you can change this animation easily. You should do the same thing for the second one. Of course, in the original template, it's probably they probably came up with a more elegant solution, but hey, I just wanted to get it to work, and that's what I came up with. Certainly better ways to do this, but it works. So I just duplicated this one. Once you changed this, just duplicate it, put it up here, and set the track matte to alpha. Pretty simple, okay? Why am I doing this? Because when that color wipe comes up, this part here is the second text, okay? Again, when I started this, I didn't think of that, but I left it in there. I could clean it up, but it works. It's pretty simple. That's why I'm recording this video, so you know how to change this quickly. For the template, I have this color control panel. That's for the people who are downloading the template. In the color control panel, you can, hang on, final video, lock this, color control panel. And you can control all the accent colors of the whole project. I changed this, as you can see, it's carrying over. And let's change this color here. Boom, and it's changing here. And you can do the same thing here with the title. Let's go to the final video. Where's the title? Here. Here's the main color. Let's lock this. It is locked. Here's the main color section. That's the main color of the title right here. And in the animation, there's this little animation going on. When you go to the color, let's say we want to change this color here, boom, or that color there. Of course, you want to change the background color accordingly. And that's where you would change the colors, okay? But when we're looking at the final video, actually the whole thing is living from these tile animations, zooming in and out and moving things around. And so let's have a look how we actually create this, okay? That's when you know how it works, it's pretty simple. So let's create a new composition, full HD, say okay. And now let's bring in an image. Where it says change images videos here, if you just use the template, you want to change your images here, where it says your image here, okay? And let's take one of the six. The first three are vertical for the first scene, but let's take, I don't know, any image. Oh, hang on, that's the wrong comp here. That one. That's my sister-in-law, by the way. So that's the image here. And this is where we want to start. So what we want to do, we want to bring in some tiles, these color tiles. So without anything selected in the timeline, double click on the rectangle. So that will bring in a new shape layer. And now we want to move that to the side. So grab the shape layer and just move it over. Hang on a second. And when you grab it on the right side, it will snap into place. That was the wrong one. Okay, grab it. And now, as you can see, that indicator will snap into place. Okay. So duplicate that, give it a different color, maybe, I don't know, this one, and take that one and move it over. You can do that numerically. I'm going to show you how that works in a second, and move it over. Okay, good. So now we got this done. How can we see actually what's going on here? Because we want to prepare the whole layout, and we want to be able to see everything. So go into the composition settings and make it much bigger. Let's do 8000 by 8000, so we can see the whole thing. Okay. So we got our first strip here, and let's just select that, Control D, duplicate it, and move it over. Pretty simple. And what we want to do now, we want to bring in some variations. So this is not going to work. Like if you have this shapes layer selected and you want to replace it by, let's say, this image here, it's not going to work. It's going to yield an error. Okay. So what I do here is I duplicate this one, I move it over, this shape layer can go, hang on a second, this shape layer can go, and now we can hold down with the selected composition, we can hold the Alt key and drag something on it, and it will just replace it at the same position. Very simple. And the same thing here with the colors. Let's say this can go. Let's duplicate that, move it over again with the snapping. And you want to grab it at the right position. When you grab it somewhere here, After Effects might not understand which border you want to snap. So when I want to have this border snap to this area here, you want to grab it at the right position, at the right area actually, okay? And yes, this can go as well. So let's replace it with, I don't know, a random image. That's my other sister-in-law. And okay, so another strip here, another row. I keep calling this strip because later we're going to introduce controllers to move them around. So I called these controllers strip controller. And move this one up and do the same thing. This time, this will go here. Hang on a second. This will go this way. This should, hang on. As you can see, there's nothing to snap on, so it doesn't really recognize anything. But if you grab it from that side, I'll see it's not working. Okay, let's do it this way. Now grab, where is it? This one, and move it over, and then there's something that it can snap on. And yeah, let's introduce a third color that, as we did in the final template. I don't know, maybe this one, and so on and so forth. Okay, so now that we moved everything into place, I've duplicated a couple of rows and changed the pictures and moved everything around. I want to show you one other thing real quick. What if you want to move things not by snapping it on the canvas, but numerically? Let's say you've got this image here, and you want to move it over to this place. You could go in and go into the position value, and here's the position value. And what you could do is go into the value and say minus 1920, since we know that this composition has a width of 1920. Say enter, and it will move it accordingly. If you want to move it twice this amount, just do the math right in between here. Say minus opening parentheses 2 times 1920 and closing parentheses. And hang on, it's underneath that one. And it's right here. Okay? So it's pretty easy to do the math right in within that parameter. And you can do simple things with this. And it's a very handy function to move things around and do the math right in the parameter. So let's undo this because we're happy with this layout. So what are we going to do with this now? Go back to the original dimensions, say 1920 to 1080. What we're going to introduce now, when we're looking at the final video, it's always this zooming out and moving things around. Let me find this one here, for instance. Okay, so it's starting here. Let's find one that's starting the beginning here, right here. Okay, it starts here, moves over, and zooms in. That's actually the basic movement of this template. So to recreate that, let's go into our example, and let's introduce controller nulls that we're going to parent things to. Layer, new, null object. And we're going to need 2 of those. So duplicate it. Why do we need 2? One is responsible for the first movement, and the second one is responsible for bringing into final position. In the comments of the original template, I read that some users mentioned cameras. I try to avoid cameras as good as possible because I found them to be, in After Effects, not to be really user-friendly, not like Cinema 4D, for instance. So I'm not using a camera here. I could, but I found this solution. It looks exactly like the original, so why not? Okay, so select everything and parent it to this null here. We're going to call this controller 1. Come on. Boom. And call the other one controller 2, so we know what we're talking about. And now let's see what we can do when we have the position of this, that everything now is moving around. See that? Or when we go into the scale value, we can scale things into place. Everything is moving along. See that? So let's record a keyframe here. And let's say we're scaling this to 80%. And now change the interpolation. I'm going to hit the F9 key. You could also do right-click, keyframe interpolation, and change it here. But you're going to be using that a lot, so you should memorize the F9 key. And when we preview that, that looks pretty nice so far. And what I always do, I go in and I go into the graph editor and tweak that a little bit. so it looks more organic. Okay, it's a little bit too fast. Whoop. Okay, looks good now. And from here, we want to move actually, hang on. Shift P, bring in the position value. And now we want to move things in place. So record a keyframe here, move it over, and now move it to this position here. Now I realize that this should be an image because it doesn't really look good. So let's duplicate this one, bring it down a little bit, go back to the it's still moving along, okay. And where's the shape layer? Doesn't matter. And now replace this one by that image. And now it's ending on an image, okay. We want to change this to Bezier as well. Moving up. And now the last thing that we want to do, we want to scale things, but now when we scale controller 1, it will take the pivot of the controller that is not sitting exactly on this image. So that's why we introduced the second controller here. And of course, controller 1 should move along. And here in controller 2, let's bring in the scale value at this position, set a keyframe, or hang on, before you do that, let's cut the connection here and put this to 80. And now when you connect it and set a keyframe and scale it to 100, it should be exactly the same dimension. Okay. One thing to note, hang on a second. Bezier, all right. One thing to note, it's not exactly, see that? It doesn't fit exactly here. What you could do is, of course, you have to move this around, but with dragging the value, it might not be accurate. Just click on the value and use the arrow keys to move it pixel by pixel, and use the control key to use it by to move it by decimals. Okay, it's even more accurate. And then you can go in, and if we zoom in even more, it's hard to see. And see that? And it's in place. Okay, and now what we did, we changed the position and it recorded the keyframe here. Of course, you want to get rid of this keyframe here, and that's the position that we want to find here. So just move the keyframe over and it should be in place. All right, so let's preview that. Boom, boom, and boom. And that's basically it. Go in and tweak the timing here a little bit. You can do that numerically. You just go in and go to keyframe velocity, and you could do it here. But I like doing that in the graph editor because every time it's a little bit different, so it looks more organic when there's a little bit of variation in there. Okay, now preview this, and that's basically it. Maybe did I tweak that? No, I didn't. That's why it doesn't look so smooth. Preview that again. And you could also overlap the movements. You could already start here with the movement before the scaling is done. See this? So this looks even smoother, and this one wants to zoom in a little bit earlier, and this looks much smoother then. And that's basically it. That's the basic concept of this template here. So the next thing that we want to address is going to the example, and how are we going to be able to control all the colors in the whole project. Let's say we're in our project here. Let's come up with a new composition and bring in a shape layer. And now let's give this a shape layer, or before we go ahead, let's introduce a controller. So when we have this shape layer, before we do that, I want to show you how to actually connect this to the other shapes. Go into the fill and give it this color, and now hit Control Alt and C. Go into our example, and let's say this one here, we want to paste the color. Boom, and it's green. Well, that's just copy paste, right? But because you have used the Alt key when copying, Control Alt C, it just copied a reference from this color. So when we change this color to yellow, we go over, the color is yellow. Okay, it changed. It's basically a way to come up with a master color. You can also achieve this by going to Edit and Copy with Property Links. Okay, and now we can actually take it a little further by bringing in a color controller, which is the Effects panel. Hang on, Control, Color Control, and what does that do? Let's say we've pick whipped this color to the controller here. For that, hold the Alt key, click the stopwatch, and drag this pick whip onto that color. At first, it will inherit the color from the color controller. Let's change it back to that green. And now when we go in, since we used the Alt key when copying this, go over to our example. Now see what happens when we change the color here. It's changing the color over the whole project. And that's how you can build your own color control panel. And that's basically what I did here. When we unshy this, here's all the shapes and layers here. And I did exactly the same thing. I copied these colors by Control Alt C, and then I introduced a couple of color controllers, and that's basically the way to control the colors over the whole project. Of course, there are more elegant ways to do this, but that's the solution that I came up with. It works, so that's I left it right there. Okay, and that's basically all you need to do to come up with the same structure. And let's ignore these color wipes. That's pretty easy actually in masking. What I did here is actually I introduced another instance or layer of controllers. Let's go back to our example here. So let's say we're here and we are going to, before the movement happens, let's move this strip here, this row of pictures. How do we do that? Now, when we go in and select this row here, as you can see, they are connected to these controllers. Now, let's just cut that connection here and deselect the controllers, and let's bring in a new null. This one. And now let's select these things, these three layers here, and connect them to that null. And of course, this null needs to be connected to that controller. And now what we could do, when we move the position around, you will see that you will be able to move the whole row around. And let's say we will start here, and when it starts moving, let's begin here actually. And when we start moving, it will just move over to the left. Yeah. And again, Bezier, a little more organic movement, more. And when we preview now, that's basically how it's a little too fast. Slow it down. See that? And that's basically what I did with these three rows here. And the null is starting at the top left of the whole structure here and moving to the middle. And while it does that, the rows are finding its final position, and then it's zooming in with the final controller number 2, zooming in to the center of the canvas. And that's basically it. Very simple. Once you know how it's done, it's really simple to accomplish. Yeah, and that's how this template was done. So go ahead, download it, and let me know what you make out of it. Or now, of course, you know how to recreate something yourself from scratch. And I'd love to see what you can come up with. If you have any suggestions, please let me know in the comments, or any templates that you want to see recreated by me. Let me know. I might pick up on that. And I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you next week on Template Tuesday. And see you next time.